Hi everyone. So I wanted to do a wrap up of the books that I've been reading recently. I want to start booktube. I really want to get into it. I've been reading a lot more the past couple of months. I've just fallen in love with this corner of the internet. I'm going to put January and February together because I haven't read that much. January was very busy for me work-wise, so I didn't get a lot of reading done. Yeah, I got through 5 books, which I know on booktube that isn't a lot, but to me that's quite a lot. And I want to get into reading more. It's one of the habits I want to take up in 2021. Yeah, and I'm just enjoying the process. I'm really enjoying this. So I started off in January. I started off on a high, I think, and I read Jane Austen's Emma. This was partly inspired by reading Pride and Prejudice. I read Pride and Prejudice not last year, but the year before, and was like shocked at how much I loved it. I mentioned this in my previous video, which I'll link. It was kind of like my 2020 wrap up, what I wanted to read this year. But yeah, I read Pride and Prejudice, loved it so much. Was a little bit intimidated. I remember trying to read Pride and Prejudice when I was younger. I remember trying to read it when I was like 12. I just found the old English a bit too hard to follow. I remember having to put it down when I was that young, and I'm 26 now. I was 26 when I read it. I was like, I can try again, and loved it, absolutely loved it. So that kind of spurred me on to want to read the rest of Jane Austen's work. So yeah, I picked up Emma, and I think it's probably generally well known that this is one of her better books. This is, I think, her last published book, and definitely her most comedic. This book, I gave it, on Goodreads, I gave it 4, but I think really I would give it 4.5, 4.75. So close to being a perfect book. I think my only gripes with it are some of the dialogue. There's sometimes parts of the book where it's describing what two characters are saying rather than the actual dialogue. And I sometimes wished when that happened, I kind of wished that the dialogue was there. So sometimes it just kind of skimmed over a conversation. And I think that was the only time I was like, oh, I wish I could listen to what Emma said there, or like read what Emma said or thought there. This is so excellent though. It's so excellent. If you're worried about classics, I think this would be a good one to start with because it's kind of a light-hearted classic rather than maybe going to Dickens or Bronte. It is a comedy. So it's, if you don't know the story, it's about a lady, Emma Woodhouse. She's young and she's extremely wealthy, well connected. She's the second sister. I was about to say Pemberley, it's not Pemberley. Highbury, sorry. So she's the mistress of Highbury, so she lives with her father. The mother is not there. It's not really explained that the mother's not there. It's implied that she's this matchmaker, so she's quite proud that she's matched her actual ex-governess really well, and she's now married, and she feels like she has this eye for spotting couples. That is the theme of the book, is that not just Emma, lots of other characters thinking that people are pairing up when they really aren't. And it is quite funny, it is quite comedic. Emma gets a friend called Harriet, and she's very juvenile, she's very kind of follows along Emma, and Emma has her life planned out for her and everything like this. And she has a neighbour who she's really close to, Mr. Knightley, and he's a bit older than her and he's a lot more wise, and it's just very smart. It's just very smart. The characters are very well written. There's definitely a few characters that are very one-dimensional. Emma's father, I think Miss Bates, they kind of have like a personality, and it's kind of like that is what you're getting. You don't get any more depth. And I think that is a common trope of a comedy anyway, but so I kind of forgive that bit, and I think that's my only little gripe with it. The other characters though, you have Jane Fairfax, Mr. Knightley, you have Frank Churchill. They're all quite complex characters. Like Jane Fairfax herself, she could have her own book series on her life. And she's only a side character in this. So I feel like the characterization is excellent in this book. The pacing is perfect. The romance elements are just, you know, slow burning, they're lovely. I feel like the main romance is actually maybe not fleshed out enough than it should be. I actually think it should be brought in a little bit sooner, or more explained a little bit. It's kind of rushed at the end, I feel. But it's a nice slow burn romance. I'm not an expert on Austen. I've only read this and Pride and Prejudice and loved them both. I think I'm going to try Northanger Abbey next, but yeah, I love this. I think my gripes with it are so minimal that it's just a perfect read. Yeah, I would definitely recommend this if you want to get into classics but are just a little bit hesitant maybe about the English. I did find if I read a chapter very late at night and I was quite tired, I would be like, what is going on here? You know, it was written, what, 200 years ago or something. I think it's the 1800s when this came out, so the English is obviously a little bit different, it's a little bit harder to understand. Recently, I've never seen the BBC version of the adaptation. I think it's like a 4-part series. I'd love to see that, I haven't seen it yet. The Anna Taylor-Joy movie though, amazing, so good. I think it really amps up the comedic side of this. It's long enough that it's a well thought out world and like social circle, but like nothing is put in there just for the sake of it. It's also strange too, like Jane Austen herself said that people won't like Emma, but even with all her flaws, she's still super likable. But yeah, just how all the misunderstandings just kind of play out, it's just so well done. I think when this came out too, it's very focused on the female characters, which is quite nice. The female characters seem to be the main people in the family rather than the men. And that was quite a interesting thing to notice. Like for example, Emma in her own house with her father, you think the father would be the main character, the main person in the building, but no, it's Emma. It obviously talks about wealth and class, like a lot of these period pieces talk about, you know, it is really interesting to read about 200 years later. But yeah, it is quite, I would say it's quite feminist. It is quite, Jane Austen of course was a feminist, but it's very, just the focus on female characters is really, really cool. So yeah, absolutely love this. So I then went on to read the first 3 of a series of unfortunate events. So this is the Bad Beginning, the Reptile Room and the Wide Window. I'm currently on the 4th one, which is the Miserable Mill. I'm rereading these. I read these as they came out when I think it was the early noughties when I was a child myself. These are my favourite books when I was younger. That and Harry Potter, but I loved these books. I loved the movie they made. The movie is based on these 3, so it's 1, 2 and 3. And I'm currently watching the Netflix series, which is so good. so good. Does the books justice and then some. So good. These are strange books. These are strange. Like, they are children's books. They're technically middle grade. However, it does kind of focus on really dark themes. So it's about murder, it's about loss, it's about mystery. It is quite dark. I've described this before in my previous video as well. They're kind of Tim Burton-esque, that kind of dark. Like, it's not a horror, more like a kind of gothic creepiness to them. What's interesting too is that it's kind of set in a timeless setting. Like, it doesn't feel like it's set in a certain decade or anything. It's definitely a fantasy world that's very like our own. The biggest points about these is the writing style. The writing style is perfection. So it's written by Lemony Snicket. Lemony Snicket is obviously a pseudonym, and he writes himself into the story as well. States that he's this narrator that has to tell this tale of the Baudelaire children. He's trying to uncover the mystery. He tells you to stop reading. He tells you not to read them. So they're quite excellent. They're funny too. It's like a lot of dark humor. Basically the story, if you've never heard of this before and you've been living under a rock, it's about 3 children. So there's Violet, Klaus and Sunny. Violet is about 14, Klaus is 12, and then Sunny is an infant. Their parents die in a fire. They're put in the care of this man called Count Olaf, and he's evil and he's trying to get their fortune. So they're left a large sum of money when they become adults. He's trying to get their fortune, and each book is kind of like a different kind of placement. They go between guardians, they go between different situations, so each book is a different kind of setting. So yeah, I'm working my way through these. I've read them all as well when I was younger, but I forget a lot of the details. I actually remember the details of these 3 the most because of the movie. I watched the movie a good few times when I was younger, but the rest of them I'm like, oh, I have no idea. So I am working my way. There's 13 books as well, the unlucky number. But yeah, it is, if you've never read these before, even if you're an adult, I would highly recommend reading these. I would definitely recommend if you have kids that like reading that are maybe around 12, 13 years old. That's probably the target audience of this. That being said, I don't think it's for everyone. I think the dark humor might be a bit off-putting for some people, but I loved it. So yeah, I'm working my way through them. I gave them 4 stars each. I wouldn't say they're nearly 5 star. They're definitely 4.5 each. Like, they're all very good, but not the most perfect books in the world. I think my favorite thing, and the show does this very well too, is that Sonny, who's an infant, will say something in baby talk, and then Lemony will like directly translate it. So like Sonny is like a little mini adult, even though she's an infant. It's very wacky, it's very out of the box, but yeah, it's so good. And like, I'm 28 and I'm enjoying them. It is, obviously I have the nostalgia factor. Apologies for the change in lighting. I actually paused for a bit and came back to filming. So it's gotten a little darker. But yeah, I was just talking about a series of unfortunate events. Yeah, I suppose some bad points about these books is that they're quite formulaic. The first like couple of books, as I remember, kind of follow along the same lines, and then I'd say by the halfway point things turn a little bit. So the first few books can be, even though it's a kind of a ridiculous story, the formula can be a little repetitive. It is a children's book though, so keep that in mind. I also love that Lemony Snicket explains words in like a comedic way, but also in a very intelligent way as well. And I did find when I was younger that was actually really good for my vocabulary. Still very interesting as an adult. But yeah, each of these books, the bad beginning is when their parents die and they meet Count Olaf and they live with him. The second book, The Reptile Room, is about living with their uncle Monty, and he's their new guardian, and he's actually quite wonderful. And then you have The Wide Window, and they live with Aunt Josephine. And I'm not sure if I remember this properly, but I think each guardian, obviously from Uncle Monty on, it kind of gets worse and worse and worse until the formula kind of changes halfway through. I hope I'm not really spoiling it, but these have been out for so long. Yeah, that's the only bad thing I would say about the books, is that they are kind of formulaic. But yeah, bearing in mind they are children's books. Yeah, I love these. I'm excited to keep reading them. I'm kind of excited for the next 10 books because I don't know them so well. Like, I know these a little bit more from watching the movie when I was younger. Yeah, I'm excited. Glad I read these. I gave them all 4 stars each. Because they're good, but not like perfect books. 4.5. They're very good. Yeah, would really recommend these if you're kind of a preteen age. So the next book I actually read this very quickly, and this is The Magpie Society by Zoe Sugg and Amy McCulloch. This was okay. It didn't blow me away, but I wasn't bored either. This is basically a young adult murder mystery. So it's set in a boarding school in the UK. You have 2 characters, Audrey and Ivy. I think Zoe Sugg wrote Ivy and Amy wrote Audrey. I can see the influences of this book are definitely Enid Blyton books, and definitely even Harry Potter, kind of the school setting. I would say the best thing about this book is the plot. The idea behind it. The idea is actually quite good. So you have Audrey, who's American, and she moves to the UK and she starts at this school. And you also have Ivy, who's kind of well established in the school. She's a prefect, she's really high achieving, and they're roommates, and kind of their friendship evolves, and there's been a death of one of the students this summer before. So it's kind of them all coming back to school in September with the aftermath of this death, and they're all trying to uncover what actually happened. I will say a lot of this book is setting up, and this is the start of a series, so I do want to kind of give it the benefit of the doubt there. A lot of the book is setting up the characters, setting up the school setting, setting up kind of the atmosphere. You have a bit of action, and then you also have the ending, which is quite good. The ending's quite good. The characters are quite likeable. You like Audrey and Ivy, and it's written in the style of Ivy's point of view then Audrey's point of view, and it kind of flips. and I have to say I'll give them props for that. It was quite seamless. There's sometimes I had to go like, oh, which chapter am I? Okay, yeah, to remember who was speaking, but like that was quite good how it kind of like went to and fro. Now the bad. The weakest point of this is the writing. It is very simplistic. It tries to be smart sometimes and doesn't really come across that way. You know, it's kind of simplistic. It is a young adult novel, so it's not trying to be a literary classic or anything like that. It is a murder mystery. It's meant to be enjoyable. So I wasn't expecting crazy amazing writing. The dialogue got me a few times. I was kind of like, oh, did teenagers even say that? You know, every male character in this actually annoyed me. Every single male character in this book is handsome and everyone's in love with him. Every single one. There's no, like, oh, maybe there's the caretaker in the garden who isn't. It even introduces Audrey's dad as a super handsome man, and I'm like, oh, come on. is there a normal looking man in this? There is a romance as well that you don't root for, but it happens anyway. You know, there's nothing appealing about the guy apart from that he's good looking. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah. Also, everything is a bit far-fetched. Like, the ideas are far-fetched. Yeah, it's just that the plot is slightly far-fetched, but it's okay. It's a murder mystery, so, you know, you could say that about Agatha Christie as well. Yeah, so those are the kind of the bad points. Another thing about it as well is it's about secret societies. So you have the Magpie Society. This is the first book, so you don't find out a lot. You don't find out a lot about anything, really. This is really set up for the series, I have to say. At the same time, the way the society is written doesn't intrigue me that much. I don't know, I was kind of like, the idea behind it, the attempt of mystery behind it, and I was just kind of like, don't really... I didn't really care about the society. I more cared about the discovering of the death, you know, like the actual crime scene investigation stuff. I did actually enjoy that part rather than the society part. Yeah, it was okay. I liked it enough that I will keep going with the series. When the next one comes out, I will give it a go. I feel like this is definitely... You can't read this by itself and get a full story. It's not the full story. Another thing that kind of griped me so much was the slang or the British terms as well. I understand like schools, like each school can have their own culture and their own slang for stuff, but it was nearly one too many with this book. Like, someone would say something, Audrey would go, what? And they'd have to explain it, and they're like, oh, this is our term for cleaners. And I was like, oh my gosh. It's like my eyes were rolling. And I understand why, and like, there's nothing here that is pointless. Like, everything in here is for a reason. Take that what you will. It was just a little one too many slang terms. Just one too many. And this comes with Audrey being American. She's American and moves over to England. So she doesn't understand. She's new to the school, so the school has to be explained to Audrey and therefore to you as well, the reader. Yeah, I hope I didn't give too much away, but it's a decent read if you like a bit of thriller, a little bit of murder mystery, something that doesn't take itself too seriously. Yeah, this is a good book. The target audience, I would say, is young adult. It's still, the characters are about 17, I think. Maybe 16, 17. There is talk about drinking, you know, there's curse words, they allude to sex as well, so it's kind of, it's not squeaky clean, which is a little bit more realistic, which is kind of good. But yeah, if you like kind of school settings, boarding school settings, that was quite nice as well. But yeah, there was definitely things that annoyed me about it, but I generally enjoyed the process of reading it. I found I enjoyed it more when I sat down and read in bulk, rather than kind of dipping in and out. I think it's a really good book to binge. I think it's a very good book to kind of sit down and finish it. Yeah, it is quite interesting. The ending's very good. Sometimes it tries too hard, but generally a decent book. I would have given it, I gave it a 3 on Goodreads, but realistically I'd probably give it maybe 2.75, 3. 2 is bad. No, I'll say 3. 2 is a bad book that had a few good points. This is a decent book. So yeah, I am aware I am 28 reading this. I probably would have enjoyed this more if I was 10 years younger. Yeah, not too bad. It was a decent book. Now, apologies for the lighting just changing throughout this whole video. I am filming and the sun is setting. But yeah, I just wanted to wrap up my January and February reads. I'm hoping I'll get a lot more read in March. I have a week off work, so I hope I'll get lots of reading done. But yeah, I started strong this year with Emma. Such a good book. So yeah, I'm pretty new to BookTube. I really want to start doing dedicated videos to books. I have a few ideas. I want to do a readathon. I want to do a kind of a Goodreads series. I'd like to start reading through the Goodread winners. So I have a haul coming for that. I'd also love to do TBR of the books on my shelf that I've never read and why I haven't read them, because there's usually a reason. But yeah, there's a few ideas. Yeah, I'm excited to start. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.